Hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I hope you were able to see some of the capability that Napino as a company possess in the video. But we'll talk more about that in some time. So first of all, I hope everyone in the audience is doing well. Your near and dear ones in your family are doing well. I think as a country we are going through a very tough time when it comes to the impact of the pandemic. But we are also recovering, as we see in some of the statistics recently. So I really wish that each and every one of you and your family members are safe and sound. Um, I wish you a very good morning once again on a Saturday. I'm sure if you are here, then you're looking to learn something or hear something interesting, so that your next 1 hour is worth the time. So, without any much delay, what I would like to introduce to you is the topic for today. Our topic is actually a very, very important and crucial topic when it comes to the domain of Internet of Things, right? And if you look at all around us, there is a tremendous growth and a tremendous speed in terms of adoption of IoT happening all around us in India and outside India. Like I think, especially there are predictions and there are statistics by various research companies across the globe that pandemic, although it created a lot of negative impact, it actually also resulted in increasing the speed of adoption for digital transformation. A lot of companies, even if you talk about a retail store owner or a manufacturing shop floor company or a simple IT company, they all had to find some ways to operate and implement business continuity in the COVID times, right? Which we are still going through. It hasn't finished yet. There is already a prediction of third wave possibly. So many players, businesses, enterprises, governments, and B2C companies, they thought of how can I run my business remotely or online or digitally, or how can I still support my customer supply chain. Um, can I monitor my goods? Can I actually monitor the health of my employees and other things, right? Even without being in person in front of them. And that's where IoT really played a crucial role. I think over the past decade or so, since I've been in this field for IoT, I've seen a rapid adoption in multiple businesses and enterprise and segments. Now, with that, because IoT is such a powerful technology, and it actually makes the accessibility to the data, right? It's a data enabler, right? Data is a new oil. And if data is a new oil, then I say that IoT is the new pipe or the drilling machine that is going to extract that oil and bring it to you. Now, for that to happen, it is also very, very important that that data is securely extracted, number one. It is securely transported to you, number two. And it is securely stored, managed, and maintained, which means the security of the data is very important, number one. And second is the privacy of the data, right? If the data is of a consumer or of a business, in both scenario, the data privacy is crucial. Like I think most of us or some of us would have heard about different policies and norms implemented across the globe. GDPR was one of it that came into existence in the European market. Then there are similar laws in other countries. India, by the way, itself has created its own version of GDPR called as Indian Data Privacy Law and Data Protection Law. So when you look at this, right, and you understand what is IoT going to do is like it's going to start exposing a lot of data from the environment of a B2B customer or from a personal usage of a B2C customer, right? A simple example could be if I think of Amazon Alexa, it is a form of an IoT device, right? Because you talk to Alexa, you give a command to Alexa, Alexa responds with an answer. It stores your command, it processes it somewhere either on the in the device or somewhere back in the cloud, and then it gives you a response. Now, there is a lot of information about how you behave, how you use the device, and your personal way of interacting with the device that is stored there. All right. If I talk about B2B, the same thing, think of a shop floor adopting IoT for preventive maintenance. There will be so much of environmental data that will be captured. So with that, I think if you look at and summarize the scenario today around us, security by design and security first principle, these are the two crucial principles or pillars of any solution provider in the domain of IoT to implement or to adopt. And at the same time, they're also very crucial for any customer adopting digital technology to be aware of that. How is my data protected, whether it is encrypted or not, where it is stored, who has access to it, and etc. So with that, I would like to invite on this fireside chat today our speaker, Mr. Prayukt KV. Now, Prayukt and I know each other for some time. He's a good friend, one of the very, very well-known personality in the security space. So Prayukt has been actively involved in productizing and promoting cross-ecosystem collaboration in the Internet of Things space since over half a decade. He's a marketer by profession. He currently works as a CMO at Subex. He's a recognized author. He's also a speaker at multiple forums. Additionally, in his past roles, Prayukt has evolved a model for the rapid introduction of IoT security across verticals by deriving custom use cases aligned to specific threat scenarios. And I think Prayukt will cover some of that today in the session, which is very interesting. I'm very excited to hear him. In recent year, he has also focused on exposing APT groups and their activities globally and evaluating the evolving threat landscape surrounding IoT and OT environments. OT is operational technology. As I said, Prayukt is an author. His book, Dot Your I's and Cross Your T's, offers specific cybersecurity interventions for securing India's cyberspace. I think we couldn't have a better speaker than Prayukt with us today for this session. So with that, I would like to welcome him on the stage. Prayukt, please let us know more about you. We are very excited to hear more about your profile and background, and then we can get into the session today.
Yeah, thank you, Vinay. Thank you, Vinay. Thank you, Ashish, Sakshi. Thanks for having me here. It's always an honor and privilege to talk about IoT security in all forums, and this one especially because you are there, Vinay. We know each other for a while. I know, as I said, we have been friends, and we've seen this, the IoT landscape evolve together since some time now. And now the security is getting added to this narrative, and we are obviously seeing the evolution of these threats and these these challenges, security challenges that have emerged in the last half a decade or so, and have become very critical to the success of IoT globally. So just to give a quick background about me, my exposure to IoT runs for almost a decade and a half now. Half a decade rather, a little over a half a decade, and I have seen how this space has evolved and the security challenges that have come in the last 3 to 4 years. Specifically speaking, there have been a lot of projects that I've been associated with where I've seen these threats up close and the kind of disruption they're capable of wreaking. And especially this emergence of the APT actors, which are nothing but the state-sponsored players who have become very active of late in geographies like India, the Middle East, and North America as well. And they are posing a bigger threat now than ever before. In addition to that, the last point I'd like to add Vinay, is about the fact that I am somebody who's part of the team that actually brings out this threat intelligence report every single year, which outlines the kind of environment that is out there as far as IoT and OT technology is concerned, and what kind of threats are emerging. We notice, or rather we monitor every single threat that comes in across 70 cities as of today, which are these key cities where we have a lot of IoT and OT deployments, and also which are the places which get attacked first as far as these technologies are concerned. So hopefully that covers it.
Great. Thank you so much, Prayog. I think so. Before we get into the session today, I just want to share some basic details with our audience. Just few things for the audience. Number one, if you want to zoom in or full screen the video, on your screen there will be a small option at the bottom right, like a 4 arrow thing that you can click and zoom the video full screen if you don't want to see the stage and the video together. Number one. Number two, we request you to ask your questions whenever it comes to your mind. There is a small Q&A link on your screen. If you press that, you can post your question. It will come to me, and we will moderate that. And at the end of the chat, we will throw these questions to our speaker today. Third, there is a feedback link. At the end of the event, we request that before you leave, please leave a feedback for us, because it is very crucial that we understand what topics you want to hear in the future. What was your experience today, and your any specific comments about the session today. So I just wanted to give a quick background as I've introduced our esteemed speaker today. This event is brought to you by Napino. It is part of Napino Knowledge Series. We started this series last year. We do this every month on different topics. We have covered topics in the domain of Internet of Things, digital solution, manufacturing as a service, and as well as investments, and so on. And today we are covering another topic in the domain of security for IoT. We would bring more topics to you in the near future on a month-on-month basis. We'll talk more about our next event at the end of the session today. So once again, you can full screen us. Number one, you can ask your question on the Q&A link on your screen. You can share your feedback with us. And there is also a social media link if you wish to follow us for our future events or about Napino. Okay. Just a quick summary. Napino is one of the leading electronics design and manufacturing company in India. We have been in operations for almost 23 years, more than 2 decades, supporting customers in two-wheeler, four-wheeler segment, and also in IoT area for the last few years now. We are also into consumer electronics manufacturing, primarily in the electronics manufacturing domain. I'm sure some of you must have seen the video at the start of the event, but we'll talk more about Napino at the end if there is time. So with that, Prayog, it was really interesting to have you here today. And as we talk about security, right? And we talk about security by design. I think my first question to you would be, what is the principle of security by design? I think that is important for audience, for me to understand when you think about security by design and how it is relevant to Internet of Things.
Oh, that's a great question, Vinay. A good one to start off with. In fact, you did mention about GDPR. So what lies at the core of GDPR, right? GDPR is all about privacy by design, right? Wherein you incorporate privacy at the core of every interaction that you do with a customer or a consumer, so that the protection afforded as far as their data is concerned is of the highest levels, and there is high levels of sensitivity as far as handling data is concerned, right? So an allied concept of this, Vinay, would be the security by design, right? Wherein you bring in the same level of sensitivity into a security context, right? So what lies again at the heart of security by design? To summarize it, it's about understanding the context, right? Being aware of the context in which an IoT project has been launched. What are the kind of dimensions which are out there which can cause disruption? What are the kind of vectors out there? How can these vectors be identified and detected early? So that the disruptions are minimized either internally or externally. So there are 4 or 5 principles which lie at the heart of security by design, but the core is really being aware of the context, right? The context in which the project has been launched, and what are the kind of security implications that it can kind of bring in, right? That's the kind of sensitivity that this particular approach brings into the entire ecosystem that will be associated with the project. So what we've seen, Vinay, in many IoT projects is that security is often an afterthought, right? There is no understanding of the kind of threats that are out there, the kind of threats that are going to emerge in the next few years since the project goes live, which is why we are seeing a lot of IoT projects getting attacked or hacked at the proof of concept stage itself, right? So what happens is these vectors, which sort of get embedded at the POC stage itself, stick around and become part of the project for as long as it's around. So the disruption potential keeps on increasing exponentially as the project moves forward, right? So with security by design, what happens is even before the project is on the drawing board, everybody who's working or rather starts working on the project is sensitized from day zero onwards, and they start with a security oriented approach so that that sensitivity continues for the longest period of time.
Okay, and if somebody wish to start a project on security implementation in an IoT device, are there any guidance on some of the key pointers to keep in mind, or maybe key bullets to have in mind, according to you?
Okay. Yeah, so see, what have we seen? Our learnings as far as IoT devices has been that the focus has always been data and some kind of remote management, and data gathering is what has always been the focus, which is fine because that is what IoT was supposed to establish, or that was the main business outcome associated with IoT when IoT came into the picture in a big way, right? That was good. But now, of course, we've seen that these very objectives that we're working towards have sort of posed a challenge, because with the focus being on data, security kind of takes a backseat, right? So all we're saying with security by design is let's get the security into the picture while we are talking about every single outcome out there. So to answer your question, yes, see, what we have to do essentially when we talk about devices is keep security in mind at all times, right? Now, when we're talking about an approach like zero trust, or even for that matter, security by design at the ecosystem level, what really lies at the heart of these two approaches is your device, right? If your device is not secure, then everything from there onwards doesn't matter. So if we are talking about a security for an IoT project, or even the entire ecosystem that IoT is facilitating through interconnection or through serving a larger objective, it has to be enabled with the device in mind. So what we have to look at is either increase the compute power of these devices, or ensure that we have a protection mechanism in place that is not focused on the perimeter. So what do I mean by that? Now, if you take firewalls, for instance, right? Now, what does a firewall do? Essentially, it sits at a node and sort of prevents, or rather, it takes the traffic and prevents certain threats from coming in, right? But then once the threat is inside, then what happens, right? It's kind of like saying that you have a building where you are having some layer of security outside, but then once the person has somehow tricked the security at the entrance, then they are free to do whatever they want to, right? This is a challenge we have been seeing in many IoT. You need to have a layered approach. You need to ensure that these layers sort of converge or start from the endpoint and go all the way up to the cloud, or the platform, or any other means that sort of lies at the other end, right? So it has to, every security measure has to start at the endpoint, but at the same time, you have to keep the network under check. Everything has to be monitored, and no one should have those kind of privileges. By no one, I mean no device or no application should have those kind of privileges which enable them to do whatever they want to at any point in time, right? That is what is zero trust all about, wherein you don't, trust is not implicitly given, but it is earned and it is renewed. Rather, you have to constantly seek the trust. So there is devices out there, once they log in, it's not like they're logged in perpetually. They're logged out after a certain period of time, and they have to log back in, right? So basically what, again, we are doing here is that security sensitivity has been brought in. And if we have the device at the heart of that and work from there onwards through the network and the cloud at the other end, then we will be more secure than where we are today.
Excellent. I think that was a very good example. I think few takeaway for me and for all of us is that layered approach is very important. So don't rely on one level or layer of security alone, especially in today's world. Second is zero trust. Don't give the trust implicitly to any intrusion, and the third is that keeping in mind that how do you ensure that the data is protected. Excellent. So Prayukt, like with that, I want to move to the second question, a relevant area. I think this is your term, gap between the cup and the lip. I think what you have seen while working in your career so far, and also as at Subex, which is a very well-known player in the cybersecurity domain, that there are a lot of gaps in what people promise on paper or what they preach versus what is actually implemented in the IoT ecosystem when it comes to security. And there could be multiple reasons. You can throw light on some of the reasons for us, and also if you can share one of the very recent or in the recent time, like last 2 year, 3 year, some of the well-known attacks on the IoT devices for us to learn from. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sure. So that's where the problem really lies, Vinay, in the sense the difference between theory and practice. Like everyone speaks about IoT security, but unfortunately, when it comes to deploying IoT security or doing something about it, we are not seeing that level of enthusiasm, or there is a kind of a systemic inertia that we are running into at all times, despite the fact that enough awareness has been raised by players like Subex and others in terms of how the threat environment is really working to choke, so to say, these IoT deployments out there. So, the level of response that we are giving to these hackers and malware developers is nowhere close to the levels of sophistication at which they are operating, right? So we have to really ramp up our game here. There's no two ways about it. And why is this gap there, as you mentioned, Vinay, between the cup and the lip? It is because of lack of understanding, and because of the fact that we tend to see these cyber attacks in isolation, right? If it happens, say, to a large Indian startup and there is an attack, we move on, and then we have the Colonial Pipeline attack. Okay, let's move on from that as well, and then we get into another attack. And so what we're not seeing is there's a larger picture, which basically is all about the threat landscape and the kind of players who are active there, including the state-sponsored hackers. And let me tell you an interesting sort of development that happened in the last year, Vinay. So what we've seen is, like many companies, even the hackers are facing a fund crunch, and this includes the state-sponsored hackers, because obviously some of the states which are backing these players have run out of money to support these guys, right? So what we're happening is now we are seeing these attacks on critical infrastructure, which were initially carried out for a variety of reasons, including disruption, to settle some geopolitical scores and things like that. Now people are asking for ransom after the data is sort of encrypted, or rather stolen, or they threaten to leak it unless a certain ransom is paid, right? So the state-sponsored hackers are themselves running after money now, right? So you can understand that where we are, or rather where we are heading towards, right? Where we are not just looking at disruption, but we are also looking at loss of money as well, which will also tie in with the ROI that ROI question that a lot of people ask as to what is the ROI that cybersecurity delivers. Now we need to ask this question to companies that have paid these ransoms and sort of suffered a hole in their books, so to say. So it's a tough situation. It's a situation which people understand in parts. So the parts that they understand is what they address. So that's what we have seen, Vinay, in the past as well, that it is never seen in a holistic way. We don't really think of companies getting attacked from geographies where they have no presence, or where they wouldn't feel that there is any competition or any reason for them to be attacked from. They don't pay enough attention to cyber hygiene, basic cyber hygiene practices, which can really amplify the levels of cyber defense which are inside. There is no emphasis on training employees, sensitizing employees. We have malware links, coming in as LinkedIn invites to people. What do we do? I mean, and with this pandemic happening, people are hard pressed for attention. So what happens is, there have been a lot of these, a lot of these attacks which have been facilitated by distracted employees and insiders, right? So the situation is getting worse, but as I said, we are not really responding to the situation with the level of attention that we need. And coming to the examples, Vinay, a lot of them, the public ones are already out there. For you can just Google and find out St. Jude's attack, where a personal healthcare device was hacked at a certain hospital. In addition to that, there was the Mirai botnet in 2017, where almost all the large OTT players were impacted, including some media entities like New York Times. That was again a set of security cameras which are hacked into. But there are certain stories which are not told in public, which I'll be speaking about. I mean, of course, I cannot name the entities here. So there was a case of a large a radar facility belonging to a large, armed forces institution in Southeast Asia, which was hacked into. And the levels of sophistication were such that the malware was using a certain behavior pattern in which they were turning the radar on and off for various reasons. There's something called as a sleep period for radar, which is to increase the life, right? They are not turned on 24/7, right? So there was this malware which was getting triggered every time they were turning it back on, and it was active for that period where it was not being monitored. The network monitoring mechanisms were not coming online. So that sort of reveals the level of sophistication. There were shop floor attacks which have happened in Japan, again in parts of Latin America and all that. And if you notice, one of the things that we track at Subex is this emergence of botnets, which are nothing but these devices, IoT devices, which have been hacked into and converted into sort of, boards for facilitating larger attacks. Some of these boards are used to, or rather converted boards, or rather hijacked boards are used to mine cryptocurrency. And some of them are used to even, tweet and interact on social media and things like that. So it's I don't even know where to start answering that question, Vinay, because there are so many instances happening, but a lot of them are not coming out because companies are too shy, to speak about them in public. They want to literally, or rather, they want to work in the background and fix those problems before, they do something about it in public. There were designs that were stolen from a large defense entity again, and they were used to copy and produce that very specific military hardware by a certain country again. So this is becoming so common now that it's almost embarrassing to now talk about it, because at least I've been speaking about this for the last 3 years, and it doesn't seem still like people are taking these things seriously. There are so many instances in my book, Vinay, that I mentioned, and they happen so frequently. Again, I'm not really a soothsayer here or an astrologer or whatever you want to call it. I have limited predictive capabilities. But my team, when we sit together and when we analyze the data from these 70 cities that we see, it is so easy to imagine, and predict and say where the next set of attacks will be taking place or what kind of entities will be breached. And that's exactly what ends up happening. And, that's the way things are. We warned about reconnaissance happening on critical infrastructure in North America, I think in 2019, was it? Towards the end of 2019. And here we are seeing those attacks taking place now, because after reconnaissance there is a phase where you can take action. If you don't take action to fix those problems, then you'll face a full-fledged attack. And that is really what is going on right now. So many instances, Vinay. I mean, cop cars getting hacked, baggage tracking mechanisms at the POC stage getting hacked again, and being used to do some funny things and things like that. I mean, as I said, I don't even know where to start even talking about these breaches.
Yeah. Maybe I think you'll write another book on the upcoming hacks or
Yes,
predicting
you.
what is going to happen. So no, I think this is very crucial that you have shared. In fact, I've seen this, that people don't normally market hacks, right? Or it doesn't come in media very easily. At least for a common man or a consumer of technology like ourselves, we basically don't read about hacks every day, right? You might read about, every company will be more than happy to announce new products or solutions or use cases, but nobody will come out and say, hey, I got hacked and I need your help to fix it or to prevent it in the future. So I think we rely on people like you and your company to make us aware about such issues. Um, And I think,
Just can I
I,
add one thing there quickly,
yeah,
Vinay,
sure,
if you
sure,
don't
sure,
mind?
sure.
One
Uh-huh.
last anecdote just occurred to me. So there was this person in the media who used to keep on pinging us all the time, asking what's going on, and
Mm-hmm.
what's going on in cyberspace, obviously. And when we tell them, right, there are clusters, there are APT actors, and these advanced players who are mixing malware and everything. She'll listen to all that, and at the end she'll say, when is the next cyber attack going to happen? Just tell us that. Or she'll say, has this happened? Is it happening right now? Give us the full details, then we'll create a story around it. So I'm like, that's not the story. The story is these things are happening right now, and these things are active threats. And imagine, in a situation where we are dealing with the pandemic, and governments are running out of money, and a major cyber attack happens on a healthcare facility or a healthcare infrastructure of a country like India. Can we even afford it? Can we even begin imagining that can we afford it? If there's a large scale disruption that happens. So there are a lot of things
Yeah.
like this. The sensitivity is what we need to work towards. Sorry. I'm sorry I
No, no,
interrupted
no, no.
you
I
there.
think no, no. Definitely, I think you are more than welcome to interrupt me. I think because you shared some of the key lessons. Because I myself keep monitoring certain things. I read about news and media. There was an attack in US of a connected doorbell or a security camera with a doorbell that got hacked
Yes.
in US or Canada few years ago. I won't name the company. I know the company well, but. That was very threatening, right? That if the security camera, which is supposed to meant for my security, is getting hacked, what do I do actually, right? So with that, I think I wanted to just remind the audience to keep asking their questions. And already getting many questions on the other screen, but please continue to ask your questions. So with that, Prayuk, like. I think doing everything or anything, right, in a solution needs investment. It needs money, and if somebody is investing,
Right.
somebody else has to pay for that investment. Like
Right.
if a customer comes to me and say, hey, give me a feature to track my humidity real time, or
Okay.
track in real time my people in my yard or in my port, right? I'm ready to pay for that because that's a feature I
Mm-hmm.
want. But at least my experience of selling
Right.
IoT in the last so many years, if I tell a customer that, hey, will you pay for encryption? They said, no, no, it should be given.
Mm-hmm.
If I ask them that, will you pay for me to making your port extra secured by ensuring there is a lot of layered security in your in the IoT solution I'm giving you? Again, they will say it should be given, it should be included, right? So at times the customers are not willing to pay extra. They probably want to take it as a given. um, so
Right.
and for a solution provider, making an ROI is a visibility for investing that much into security. You yourself mentioned you need to increase the compute power of an IoT device if it need to be more secured, right? So that means if I have to increase the compute power, I have to invest more. And will I really be able to sell that price point at target price, or compete in the market, if I really invest in security by design? So, what is your take on this? And is there any guideline that we can keep in mind?
Okay. So see, there are various ways when I mean that you can, as I said, it should be a layered approach. If the device compute power cannot be extended, we can definitely monitor the networks, the gateways, and all that, and have multi-level sort of detection mechanisms in place to detect and contain a cyber attack very early. And these are systems which are already in place. Like for instance, we are it's exactly in that space, so I wouldn't speak about that. But there are different ways in which you can still go ahead and do it without really worrying too much about the cost, because the cost is only a factor of what really is the outcome, or rather what kind of insurance is it giving you, for instance, to speak of it in that language, so to say, right? Because now you see, recently we had this well-known cyber attack on a critical infrastructure entity, and it's alleged that they paid 5 million USD, right? That's what has been. That's a number that we are hearing. That's significant. I mean, for any entity, that's a huge amount of money. Now, assuming that somebody, that's not an accurate figure, or no money changed hands even. But the kind of ransoms we are seeing, or rather we are hearing about, is in that range. It's usually in millions of USD, it's in bitcoins, and anonymized transfer, and God knows what all are there associated with that. So the question we should be asking ourselves is, can we afford a cyber attack here? The second is, if we can afford it, then what is the kind of, what is the level to which we can afford, right? If we go in for a complete disruption and a complete loss of credibility, is that something that we don't mind putting on our price list, or rather on something that we want to buy? So these are the kind of questions we need to start this discussion with, right? Then we will gain some clarity and see that it's actually affordable to have these measures in place. And then, rather than looking at paying the costs later on, in so many ways, tangible and intangible, right? Because your brand gets affected, your credibility gets dented. A lot of questions are asked: who was in charge, who was doing what, etc., etc. And let's not even go there, right? So it's a question of just being proactive. I mean, look at your automobile today, right? As in how safe it is. Or forget the automobile, look at the planes in the air, right? They are also using IoT at this point in time. The engines have been tracked in real time. Like when MH370 went down, the last ping we heard from that aircraft was from its engine, right? Rather than any of the core systems there. Now, why weren't the core systems pinging the way its engine was pinging? That's one question, for instance, right? So safety doesn't come with a price tag. It is something you have to just go ahead and bake in to the costs, and if required, expand your budgets to make sure safety and security. Sorry, both of those have to come in, right? Now we are seeing a situation where we are having manufacturing entities getting attacked and the safety of employees getting compromised. Can you imagine that, right? The Triton malware that we keep speaking about actually affects the HSE sort of systems in manufacturing, right? Manufacturing and oil and gas as well. It turns off the safety mechanisms so that if there is a increased concentration of certain chemicals in the environment, including gases, they will not come to know, and employees will be affected. And when it comes to any environment or any space, any casualty is unacceptable, right? We shouldn't even be reaching there. Any kind of disruption is unacceptable because we are working in a global supply chain now, and any disruption that impacts any part of the world will end up impacting us at some level or other, right? So keeping all this in mind, Vinay, if you look at the ROI, the case is very clear. It didn't take an expert to tell us that these are investments, these are not costs, right? That's the way we need to really see it, Vinay. If we start looking at it in that way, I think a lot of problems will be solved. So it should be an investment rather than a cost.
Great. I think that's a good takeaway. Like, it should be seen as an investment rather than a cost by both stakeholders of the IoT ecosystem. And I think you brought up a very good point here, right? Like when we look at security as a hygiene, and if somebody have to have it right, regardless of what solution we are selling, then it has to be baked into the cost, and somehow somehow be made ROI friendly, right, for both the customer and the solution provider. So I think like uh, uh, my I think the last question from our chat perspective that I wanted to throw at you, and you covered this in some flavor earlier, very critically, is that what has happened in the last 2-3 years after the pandemic? Like, what have you seen the impact on security in the connected device or IoT domain specifically? Has it increased? Has it decreased? Or has it remained the same? That will be, I think, important for us to know that times like this, which may come in the future, right? How should we be prepared for it?
Right. So again, great question, Vinay, because this pandemic has sort of given us more data points, and it has exposed many other weaknesses which were there in the system, right? With a lot of folks working from home in unmonitored environments, carrying their official machines with them and hardware with them, and working remotely. There were a lot of challenges that came in, especially after these employees came back when there were periods of lull and things, employees were asked to come back to office and they started logging into the networks, and then things started going haywire. Those are all things we have seen. So overall, yes, the attacks have gone up significantly in the last 1 year, and there are various reasons for it. As I said, the APT, the state-backed groups have started monetizing, so they've started increasing the number of attacks. A lot of independent groups have started coming up. A lot of new clusters have sprung up, again because they want to monetize these attacks, like these hit and run attacks, where they just target you, they take the money, and then they sort of disappear below the radar. And these attacks are not really brought to the attention of the cyber regulators of those countries. A lot of startups are getting attacked primarily to collect the data that they hold of customers, including the financial information and things like that. And hackers are taking advantage of another sort of a interesting development that happened since the pandemic, which is the disruption, or rather the distracted environment in which employees are operating today, which I mentioned to you earlier about. So increasingly what we're seeing is that, just like COVID came in waves, even these attacks are coming in waves. We saw the second wave, which has impacted India in such an unfortunate manner. In the cyberspace, the second wave happened, I think, somewhere in the second half of last year itself, right? So what happened in the second wave was they took a lot of data in the first half of the COVID themed attacks. They gathered a lot of data, and that data was used to target these very enterprises which lost them, right? If they were not targeted in the first sort of wave, they were targeted in the second wave, and that is what we are increasingly seeing now with all this disruption, lack of attention and things like that. Hackers are having a field day now, so to say, which is why we're hearing
Okay.
so often about these cyber attacks all around us, right? Like earlier, we used to hear
Okay.
about them once a month. Now we are hearing almost on a weekly to daily basis, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
the situation has deteriorated to such an extent, and the amount of data, I think, if I remember, it's in volumes that I cannot even imagine that have turned up in the dark web, as far as this stolen information is concerned or leaked information is concerned. Because in some
Yeah.
instances they are refusing to pay the ransom, so they are just dumping the data. And even paying ransom doesn't mean that your data is secure, because usually these are hacker groups, and one individual might come out of that hacker group and use the data and do something with it. So overall, it's deteriorated. The overall security environment has deteriorated. But then again, we are seeing early signs of a fight back as well, with governments toughening or rather increasing the
Yeah.
regulatory oversight. So hopefully this will all lead to something better. And I always say that let the healthcare sector and the financial sector be as protected as possible, along with the manufacturing, because a lot of livelihoods depend on these. So I would like to appeal to the hackers, if they are listening, to avoid attacking these sectors if possible, because this is not the time for that. But then again, as I said, for us, what can we do is not the appeal as such, but take strong measures, sensitize our employees, and ensure that the basic cyber hygiene is taken care of. Increase the gap between you and the hacker, your infrastructure and the hacker. These are things we can no longer afford to ignore, Vinay. And these should be part of the SOP, regular SOP. We are having so many, health and safety drills. Remember where
Yeah.
we used to come out the building, every month, and somebody used to guide us on
Yeah, yeah.
firefighting and things.
Right,
Why
right.
don't we do a cyber drill as well? Why don't we do, why don't we do conduct these audits, cyber audits, get people to see if your environment is safe or not? Because at the end of the day, everything is connected, and if something goes wrong, we all have to pay for it directly or indirectly. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
way, all of us are stakeholders in that, as employees of these corporations, and as the first line of defense against these cyber hackers and those who want to cause mayhem.
No, I think that's an excellent take. Cyber drill is important. Cyber audits are important. And it doesn't mean that only an IT company or a company which is in the knowledge domain should do it. Every company, for that matter, manufacturing, healthcare, should think of cyber audits and cyber drills to be done. Like,
Yes,
because
exactly.
most of us and all of us actually protect some or other kind of customer data in our premises or in our setup and infrastructure. So that's a very important one. By the way, if you happen to see my credit card info or my bank info leak somewhere, please let me know. Although there is not much money, but I still would like to know, right?
Just joking.
so
Just joking.
so uh,
Sure.
Yeah. No, actually, because I'm seeing so much of information about so many fintech companies getting hacked recently. The user data getting leaked. Facebook, of course, is a very typical example, but financial technology companies which store so much of info about yourself. Today, actually, when I go, I never check that box that says save this credit card for next time quick payment. I said I will spend more time to enter my credit info rather than save it in your database.
Absolutely.
And I always do it in incognito mode rather than in the cookies mode, because I don't know where my cookies are getting hacked into easily. So
Right.
I think with that, Prayukt, there is a very relevant question from a couple of people in the audience who has asked that. There are a couple of questions. I'm going to like summarize the first question, which basically came from few people, that what are some of the guidelines for ensuring cyber hygiene, or how do we get started on cybersecurity? Is there any document, any book, any material that you can hint at? And of course, we can share this with our audience later on as a post event notes to them.
All right. In terms of books, a lot of them are there. There's one called "Click Here to Kill Everybody." I think the author is Brian somebody. Again, I'm very bad with authors. Sometimes I'm bad with book names as well. And there's one more called Sandworm. Both of these are very well written books. They go into depth as far as outlining cyber attacks for folks who are not really in the industry, or helping them understand how cyber attacks have evolved over the last few decades, not even years for that matter. So it's definitely a good place to start with. Second is in terms of their personal lives. Again, like you mentioned about how you take care of not entering your credit card information, it's small steps like that which add up, right, to a larger sensitivity as far as information security is concerned and cyber security is concerned. So at a personal level, if you're doing all that, then it's personally, I mean, that's perfectly fine. Even if you're checking what all information your apps are carrying or are they taking away from you, and whether that's necessary or not, is the app worth sharing that level of information with, etc., etc. Those are all good places to start with. There are books. I can share some guidelines as well. The unfortunate thing is a lot of regulations have come in the last few years, but they deal with certain segments, and a lot of them are very they're not really mandatory in nature. They're more of recommendations, because the industry in some instances sort of they got a pushback from the industry saying we need more time to sort of comply with these and things like that. So we'll see those coming up. Like the US regulation is there on IoT. Then UK is also, in fact, talking about security by design, legislation on that. European Union again has brought in a lot of good recommendations. So I'd recommend all of you folks to read it. Read these recommendations. EU, UK, and US. All of those are very insightful. In fact, they've set up the context very well. They've understood what are the challenges. The recommendations are evolving, so hopefully things will improve in the next 3 to 4 months. But in the meantime, they can read up on these. They can set up cybersecurity or cyber attack alerts on Google and other forums that they're using to see what really is going on around them. Because so many of the cyber attacks are not even reported by the mainstream media for various reasons. If there are geopolitical attacks and things like that, where there are other reasons for not carrying out the coverage as such. And then talk to people, talk to companies like us. I mean, like we don't charge every time you speak to us, so you can always reach out. We can always have a security-related conversation, but it's essential that you have these conversations, Vinay. That we bring security back into the front lines of everything that we imagine is important for the success of our businesses and our economies. Because see, we are hearing all these numbers: 25 billion devices, 75 billion devices. I don't know what the latest one is. I'm very ignorant at that. But both of us know one thing, Vinay, that IoT is already touching our lives in so many different ways, right? In so many different ways. So if anything happens to IoT, it is, or rather, if there are breaches that happen or things that go wrong, it will end up impacting all of us, no matter where they are, or no matter where we are or what we do, right? So it's, as I said, it's upon all of us to increase our awareness levels and start. For Indian folks who want to understand the Indian context, my book again is a good place to start, but it's a slightly high level, because it was written at a time when I was working for a very important national project on cybersecurity at that point. So there are some recommendations which might seem to be slightly, up there. But then again, that's again something that can serve as a point of input. But more than that, read up. Nothing beats reading. So many good books are there. The couple of ones that I mentioned, and then you can reach out to us and we can tell you some more books to
Sure,
read. That's a
sure.
good place to
Okay.
talk and then explore these legislations as well. Those are the three things I would recommend.
Great, great. In fact, you made a very important point. If I give an analogy, people don't like to talk about mental health issues, but people say, and the doctor says that talk about it. Talking about it helps to relieve it very, very easily. And talk to your doctor. The similar thing is in cybersecurity or security, right? Please talk about it and discuss among yourself in your company. I'm sure the role of CXO in terms of a chief security officer or chief information security officer is becoming important day by day. CISO or CSO, I've seen that in the last 5 years. That's crucial. So another question, Prayukt, is what are the standards of security for communication of data from sensor to edge and from edge to cloud? Is there any mandatory standard which every IoT device must follow?
I will have to come back on that. See, there are standards again. They are more in the realm of recommendations at this point in time. Again, it depends on which geography you are in. Certain geographies are absolutely there is no protection. Like in India, for instance, right? We've seen these $2, $5, $10 devices that come in, which don't adhere to any standard whatsoever. They're just to do a specific sort of purpose, be it from the humidity levels or the environment, or for the environment monitoring, so to say. So there are nothing. It depends. I think in US and UK and European Union have come out with a lot of guidelines. Like in US, we had the IoT law, which came out in December, which sets a lot of standards for these, for device manufacturers. Again, who are supplying these devices to the government of USA, right? So for all the federal projects that they're running, there are certain mandates that again it goes into slightly into the security by design domain itself, that they should be protected. They should be I would recommend folks to read up on that, because that legislation again has few loopholes, but then again it is something that comes very close to what could evolve into a standard in the next couple of quarters, if not earlier. Otherwise, most of the standards are not really mandatory. They're more of recommendation in nature, and they're yet to take into account a lot of these emerging threats that have come in the last couple of quarters and since the pandemic has come in, actually. So we need to revise those. We need to bring in definitely some mandatory requirements that need to be implemented. I'm sure we are heading in that direction, but it's a question of how soon will we sort of reach there.
Okay. In fact, another relevant question is that if there is a deployment already done, right? It's an existing deployment of IoT. How can we mitigate the security risk on such a area if it is not something still to be deployed, where you can actually implement some security protocols or standards? Is there any way to do that on an existing brownfield setup?
Yes. Brownfield, definitely. Again, that's a very valid question, relevant question also. The simple answer is yes, there are so many measures. You can monitor your network. You can monitor your network at various levels to track anomalies, anomalous behaviors. If the data is not behaving in the way it is supposed to be, these anomalies can really indicate some level of compromise that has taken place. That's a good place to start. Device behaviors can be monitored. Data behavior can be monitored. You can monitor the overall network and see if there are things that are not happening the way they are supposed to. Like, for instance, the defense contractor I mentioned about Vinay long back. What happened to them was that the data was being exfiltrated during off-work hours, right? And since nobody was monitoring the networks in the off-work hours, they were, say, a certain country was able to sort of, exfiltrate this data and use it for their own good. So monitoring the networks and the data is very important, because at the end of the day, data is your lifeblood, right? It is what is running across. And if data is contaminated, the infection spreads faster than you can imagine. But if you can contain the infection in the data, isolate it, prevent the lateral movement of malware, And to begin with, even know what devices are there in the IoT network. More often than not, people are not even aware of what assets are connected to their networks. There are devices with varying levels of security, with various architectures. So what happens is a hacker is easily able to virtualize or build a digital twin of a device and sort of hook it onto a network and start doing their mischief, right? So these are the things which can be easily done. They don't take that much amount of time or effort to get started. Monitoring your network is a good place to get started. Any anomaly needs to be identified and isolated to begin with and studied, right? That's a good place to start, Vinay, I would say.
Great. And in fact, I think you touched this important point. In the future, we are thinking about a topic on digital twin. While digital twin plays an important role in, especially in the industrial segment, to replicate the functionality and to manage the digital picture of the physical shop floor. It can also be leveraged to hack, as you mentioned, right? Somebody can replicate your environment and then behave like your normal device and latch onto the network, possibly.
Yeah.
So,
And one
okay.
quick thing,
No, that's
one more
great.
thing
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
to add, when just like digital twin, we can also create digital decoys. So that what happens is that you can deflect
Okay.
the attacks onto these decoys, so that your core infrastructure is left untouched. So the hacker would think that they are attacking the real McCoy, whereas what they're getting is something else, right? That is the fundamental principle behind these
Ah,
honeypots that we are running in
okay.
70 plus cities as of today. It's virtualized environments
Mm-hmm.
and actual physical devices also wherever we could. So when the hacker
Mm-hmm.
is attacking them, they are thinking that they are actually targeting the real sort of device or devices, a set of devices or constellation of devices. But whereas in some instances that might be virtual sort of
Mm-hmm.
honeypot where they are trapped, or where we can study them in isolation. So nothing should stop any entity from even having these digital decoys, right? So that anything happens,
Okay.
the digital decoy takes the hit, and you are able to know what is the modus operandi of that particular hacker or that malware in attacking that particular decoy, and then you can protect yourself knowing that it is this particular tactic they used to breach the systems, actually, I
No,
would say.
that's an important one. Okay, I will keep this in mind. Digital decoy, like learning from the defense area, right? How do you protect your country by implementing decoys at the border? You can do the same in your digital world. That's very good. So there is another question, Prayog. There are more questions, but we have time to take two more. So I will take two more, which are more relevant. Home automation, I think, is an area which is rapidly evolving. There are so many IoT applications and solutions. Even today in India, a lot of builders are promoting their construction, claiming to sell a smart home. So I think the question here is that how do we secure an individual facility, both as a consumer and any idea about the scope of IoT security vendors in this segment?
Yes, so there are definitely vendors out there who are in the B2C segment, providing security for home automation devices and whatnot. They are easily there. In fact, some of these devices also come with some levels of, or rather good levels of security as well. We are seeing that it's still initial days, of course. But then again, what is the problem that we're seeing, Vinay, is that a lot of them come with default settings and passwords, right? Default
Hmm.
credentials. That becomes the big challenge now. And
Hmm.
remember, we were talking the other day about Japan, where the government of Japan, or rather the cybersecurity regulator, if I remember, had targeted these very
Yeah,
webcams, right? Webcams
correct.
were
Yeah.
targeted, and the users were informed that that they were using default credentials and they were required to change that, right?
Hmm.
So even if you work, or rather start your response, or rather your cyber hygiene from there, where you avoid these default credentials, that itself is a good place to begin with. Then look at
Hmm.
Google up on these vendors and see what kind of breaches have happened with them in the past, and what has their response been, right? They need to have come back with a response on every single breach that has happened or has been pointed out, so you can see who is serious about cybersecurity and who is not. And are they even mentioning cybersecurity on the website when they're selling? And what kind of measures are they listing?
Hmm.
That is important. If they are not talking about cybersecurity, or they're just talking about it in passing, saying yes, everything is secure, you don't have to worry. No, that's not an acceptable answer. They need to outline those measures. If needed, you can talk to their customer service agents and ask them, or rather, shoot a mail and say, ask them to explain what levels of security are they deploying for these devices. Because more often than not, again, as I said, these are initial days for the evolution of these hardened devices.
Yeah.
So a lot of the devices out there are, again, these $2 to $10 ones, which are coming with some basic functionality, but have absolutely no security, mechanism inbuilt or otherwise in them. So we need to really do some research, like we do some research on the cost front before we buy. We need to include security as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, very, very true. In fact, default credential is one of the very important area of weakness, right? We have seen default passwords and username admin being plugged into the IoT devices, and they can be very, very easy to hack by anyone, right? So as a consumer, I think it is the onus is on us to ask the right questions when we buy connected electronics or consumer electronics, right? At least see the setup process and maybe change those default credentials yourself if it is okay or possible or allowed by the supplier.
Definitely.
True. Okay. And so last question, maybe if you have an idea on this, it's an interesting one, is that UK implemented some consumer electronics related data security law recently. Right. If you're aware of that, if you can enlighten us. Yeah.
Not fully. I had, sort of gone through it last year. That is why I don't have full details on it. Again, it sort of mimics a few things that the US law also mentions as far as IoT device protection is concerned. But what came out again during that research, Vinay, is, it's again not really something that's mandatory, and it's still in the recommended space. So that is a small concern that is there. Otherwise, if I remember, in terms of the comprehensiveness and all, they were pretty good. The coverage was pretty fair. Again, I don't have the full details with me. You'll have to forgive me for that. I didn't prepare on the regulatory bit, because that is something we do on and off. We don't do it on a regular basis. As and when a new regulation comes in, the team studies it. We also look at it and see, how far the governments and the regulatory bodies have come. We do look at it in that sense, and also see how how it's going to impact the end users as well. From that perspective, we do it, but I'm not able to recollect the full details in this particular instance.
Okay, that's fine. No problem. I think this has been an amazing session, Prayog. Like there are a few more questions, but with the paucity of time, I cannot take up all of them. But with that, I really want to reiterate the audience to please keep throwing your Q&A. We will track some of these questions and throw to our speaker, which we can include in the thank you note back to you, and the summary of the event. We, of course, will share the recording of the event today. And I would like to summarize here that I think today we have learned some important lessons to keep in mind, and also to understand that security should not be taken for granted. It has to be thought and by first principle approach in our minds. I think definitely we can connect with all of you. Can connect with Mr. Prayog KV. He's on LinkedIn. He works at Subex as a CMO. We'll share his profile link if he allows so. He has done his MBA from IIM Bangalore, which he didn't talk about earlier. As I know, Prayog, he doesn't like to boast about anything that he brings to the table.
No, it is not.
He's a very shy person.
I would sort of correct you when I'm sorry. Executive General Management Program. It was not an MBA. I mean,
okay,
I know you have done an
okay.
MBA from IIM. So I'm definitely not in your league. Please, I mean, please apologize. It has been written like that anywhere. It's not that. And another small correction there when
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just saying again, I'm the head of marketing for the Subex Secure wing of Subex, which deals exclusively with cybersecurity, because Subex is into many things. You can check us out on subex.com. We have a lot of interesting projects and products that we bring out. We were India's oldest software product company, right? That's the way we are.
Great. Okay.
And
Okay.
I'm heading the marketing for cybersecurity. I exclusively deal with cybersecurity as part of this team, which is a very young team.
Great.
I think our average age is about 25, which makes me a senior citizen. And we have some of the most amazing minds who work in this particular team as such. And you will hear a lot about us when in the coming months and years as we're scaling up at this point in time. We have done a lot of good work, which went under the radar again because we don't like to often beat our own drums, but it's all there on the media. You can see all the advisories we've given and everything. So just wanted to put it out there before people think that I'm masquerading so many levels.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. You are a cybersecurity specialist, right? You're creating a decoy for yourself, right?
You can say that there are decoys and there are things that we study, exposing our personal information. At least mine, I've done that sometimes to see what really happens. Again, those stories are there in the book, Vinay, so you can read about it.
Sure.
And see.
Great. So I think with that, I would like to thank you so much, Prayukt, for your time today. I think it has been a great 1 hour, more than 1 hour plus talking to you, listening to you, your experience, and I'm sure the audience, once they look up your profile, your book, they can learn a lot from it. I myself, I'm going to buy the book after this call today. I have not read it so far. But I will do now. And I think for the audience, once again, I would like to share that please share your feedback with us on your on the link in front of your screen. That is very, very crucial for us to keep improving. We are only this is our 8th event, and we still have a long way to go. We want to bring more and more interesting topics as Napino Knowledge Series to you. I would like to thank our partners today for the event, NASSCOM IoT Center of Excellence, IoT NCR, one of the world's 3rd largest IoT community, LIF Forum, which is Leaders and Innovators Forum, another community who are doing a great job bringing some good leaders on the same platform. I would like to thank Napino for giving this platform to the audience. And more, I would like to thank the entire audience for taking the time out on a Saturday morning and hearing us out. And with that, I would like to also inform that our next event will be announced soon in the next few days. The topic is going to be covering a very interesting use case, which is very relevant for today's market and in the coming future, is tracking and monitoring the environmental information, right? Using a smart tracking solution or environmental monitoring solution, whether it is a vaccine or whether it is pharmaceutical products or food products or anything, right? It is becoming slowly a norm across the globe. Especially many governments have mandated that every supplier should monitor parameters like temperature, humidity, location of their goods in near real time, if possible. For vaccine, it is even more crucial to monitor the temperature because it has to be stored and maintained in a particular temperature till it is given to you, right? So our next topic is going to be very interesting on how can we implement solutions or adopt solutions, both as solution provider or as a consumer, for monitoring this data remotely. I would like to thank Confias and the technology provider for giving us this platform and support. So once again, thank you, everyone. Hope to see all of you very, very soon. And apologies if I cannot take your question up for discussion today, but we will try to answer if they have not been already covered. And we will do share notes and some questions which are not answered over to you later on. Thank you once again. Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you, Seji. I think we can stop the broadcast.